Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie starts with a man named Dan Millman, who often sees in a dream that his leg is completely shattered, and then, there appears a janitor wearing mismatched shoes, who sweeps the pieces of his shattered leg. He sees the same dream and wakes up. He is getting restless, and finds himself unable to go back to sleep, so he gets up and goes out. Dan makes his way to the gas station, and there, he buys something to eat and drink. When he gets out of the shop, he sees an old man, wearing mismatched shoes just like the one in his dream. Dan approaches the man, and asks him why he is wearing mismatched shoes, and the old man says that one is older than the other. Dan leaves after that, and the old man goes to sit in the chair outside the gate. As Dan walks away, he looks behind, and that man is no longer sitting in his chair, but is actually standing on the roof now. Dan is shocked to see it, because there are no stairs to that roof, and the old man is standing there not even 10 seconds after sitting in the chair. Dan asks the old man how in the world he managed to get there so quickly, but the old man does not reply, and Dan leaves. The next day, Dan goes to the gym to train, and we see that he is a gymnast. Dan tries to do the triple flip, but slips and falls just like he has done so many times before. His coach tells him to stop screwing around, as he is a good athlete, but if he does not take the game seriously, he could end up hurting himself. Dan then looks at the wall, and he remembers what happened last night. He is still unsure what happened out there, as he thinks about the presumed 12-feet jump of the old janitor. Dan goes to see the old man the next night, and asks him how in the world he managed to jump up to the roof just like that. He tells the old man that he himself is a gymnast, so he is very much aware of the fact that even the most athletic man out there cannot possibly make that jump. The old man then tells him that the Spartans were the most deadly warriors in the history of the world, no one could beat them, and about the things they used to do. He tells the boy that he knows nothing. Dan, however, tells him that he knows way more than the old man thinks, to which the old man disagrees. Dan then challenges him to ask any question, and claims that he can answer it. The man then asks him if he is happy, to which he replies yes, because he is the son of a rich father, he is a good student and a good gymnast, girls throw themselves at him, so yes, he is happy. The man then asks him why he is so happy, and why sleep keeps eluding him, because he came to the gas station at 3 a.m. last night and tonight as well. The boy finds it hard to answer that question, and tells the old man that this is a tricky question. The man says no, it is not. He then asks the boy what he would be if he was not a gymnast. This question bothers him, and he tells the old man that this is a useless question. In truth, he has never thought about it, so he cannot answer that question. Dan then leaves, with a sense of fear in his mind. The next night, when he is sleeping, he sees that old man in his dream yet again, and wakes up in a state of mild panic. He makes his way to the gas station yet again, and has a conversation with the man. He tells him that if he is so talented, why in the world is he working at a gas station? The man just says that he provides service to other people, and has no higher purpose. That night, a girl named Joy joins them, and she brings something to eat for both of them. Dan and the old man start eating. Dan is eating very fast, so the old man gives him some advice, telling him to savor the taste, enjoy the food, and enjoy the moment. Dan tells him that he should not disturb others when they are eating, and that's a rule, just like the old man must have many rules. The man, however, tells him that he has no rules, and has learned from his own experience. He then asks Dan for how long he can stay in the squat position. Dan says 5 minutes, and the old man tells him to do that. As he does that, the man goes out, and Dan finds it hard to continue despite being a good athlete, and falls down. The man tells him that the people only tell him what is good for him, but he should not listen to them. Instead, he should learn from his own experience, because those are the lessons you never forget. The man then tells Dan that he is going to train him to control both his body and mind. He is going to make him a warrior. Dan calls him Socrates. Socrates, prodded by the impatient and defiant Dan, gives the boy a series of tasks and lessons. The central concept of Socrates' philosophy is that one must live entirely in the present moment. Other ideas include that at no time is nothing going on, and the idea that an appropriate time exists for fighting, and another for abstaining from violence. These lessons are conveyed through practical lessons, long contemplation, and one spectacular mystical experience. Dan gradually learns to appreciate every moment, to view the journey towards a goal as more meaningful and significant than the attainment, to pay attention to that which he is doing, thus increasing his gymnastic prowess, and to a slightly lesser extent, controlling himself. Throughout the lesson, Dan learns virtually nothing about his mentor, other than his philosophy. One of Dan's gym mates' wrists gets broken during training, and they are worried about his replacement, but Dan shows up and says he is going to replace him. He impresses everyone, and even his coach is shocked. That night, he goes to the old man and tells him about it. The old man says that he has learned nothing, and tells him to come back the next day. Dan comes back, and the old man asks him to clean the toilet. He starts giving him these common chores which Dan hates doing, and on the other hand, it starts affecting his training as well. His coach scolds him a lot and Dan gets annoyed. He comes back to the old man, and tells him that he is sick of the things he is making him do. He adds that he has no idea what kind of a warrior he is trying to make out of him, by making him clean the toilets. Dan leaves after that. We again see Joy, and get to know that she has learned and integrated Socrates' philosophy into her life, to the extent that she seems as wise as Socrates himself. Dan attempts to ask her for information regarding Socrates, but receives little. Joy treats Dan indulgently, though she evidently respects him. One day, Dan is on his motorcycle. He drives recklessly, and his motorcycle collides with a car that ran a red light, causing his right femur bone to shatter. He is rushed to a hospital, where a metal bar is placed in his leg to maintain its integrity. As a result, his gymnastic coach believes that Dan cannot compete in the national competition. Dan is now totally broken, because his game is everything to him. One day, he runs into Joy and asks her about Socrates. She tells him that he should go to him, and she also adds that he came to see him in the hospital as well. Dan is really touched, and makes his way to the gas station to see the old man. Dan goes to see him while he is working on a car. He makes Dan sit on the driver's seat, and gives him some instructions to follow. Dan starts crying, feeling ashamed, saying he should not be crying. The old man, however, tells him that it is natural, and he should let out his emotions. Dan says that there has been only one thing he always wanted to do, and he is not going to be able to do that now. The wise man tells him that whatever happens in our lives happens for a reason, and there must be a reason behind what has happened to Dan. He then tells Dan to find answers in himself, and leaves him alone. Dan keeps telling him whatever comes to his mind, but the old man is not satisfied, as Dan has not been able to find the answer the old man wants him to find. One day, while he is sitting, he sees a girl and a boy talking, and has a realization. He then goes to the old man, and tells him that every moment of life is special and important in its own way. The old man is now impressed by Dan, and this is the exact realization he wanted Dan to have. They go to a bar, and there, he smokes drinks and does all the things he has told Dan to avoid. Dan looks at the old man in shock. He then tells Dan that habit is a problem. Once in a while nothing is harmful. On their way back, they get mugged and Dan is disappointed, as the old man does not stop the muggers despite being really powerful. But the old man tells the muggers to take even their clothes, and tells Dan that he told him, the hardest thing to do is to love someone you don't like, and Dan understands the lesson. He then goes on to teach him one more lesson, that the journey is more important than the destination. Eventually, Dan is restored to full health and strength, while his coordination improves, and his mind is set entirely on the present moment. He competes in the US trials for the Olympics, and achieves a victory. Shortly before the competition, Dan diverts the bus he is riding to Socrates station, only to find that Socrates has vanished without a trace. At the arena, he attempts to teach his teammate Tommy what he has learned, but fails due to Tommy's emotional insecurity and lack of comprehension. Dan is then called upon for his turn to perform. While he does his routine, Dan performs flawlessly just like pommel horse tryouts. Moments before he completes his routine, Socrates is in his thoughts asking him 3 questions. Where are you? Here. What time is it? Now. What are you? This moment. Dan then performs triple consecutive flips, with the commentators speaking frantically, and the judges staring at him in amazement. He then dismounts, and the rings swing outwards, eventually touching each other. The screen goes black, leaving his last moment unknown. The postscript states that Dan and his Berkeley gymnastics team won their first national title. It is implied that Dan of the film, and Dan, the author of the book on which the film is based, are one and the same. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.